Well, today is Memorial Day, a time set aside for remembering. So today I'm going to break from our regular schedule. The rest of the week we'll focus on what a parent wants. Now, memory really is a tricky thing. Forgetfulness can have some tragic consequences. I like the story of a retired pastor. He's given a new preacher advice on how to conduct his very first wedding ceremony. His final instructions were this: if in the middle of the ceremony you forget the words, just quote the first passage of the scripture that comes to mind. Well, sure enough, the young pastor, he lost his place. He forgets what he's supposed to say next. Now, he remembers the advice, so he quotes the first verse that comes to his mind. Father, forgive them, for they know not what they're doing. You get it, right? Memory is tricky. Now, memory is also a fascinating tool of God. When Moses gives his final speech to the children of Israel, just before they're getting ready to enter the promised land, he says in Deuteronomy chapter 7 this: you may say to yourselves, these nations are stronger than we are. How can we drive them out? But do not be afraid of them. He says this: remember well. Remember well what the Lord your God did to Pharaoh and to all of Egypt. You saw with your own eyes the great trials, the miraculous signs and the wonders and the mighty hand and outstretched arms with which the Lord your God brought you out. The Lord your God will do the same to all the peoples you now fear. He says, do not be terrified by them, for the Lord your God who is among you is a great and awesome God. And so Moses says, hey, remember our awesome God. Remember how God brought terrifying plagues on those Egyptians to force your release. How God parts the Red Sea. How God provides water from a rock. He sends manna to eat, a pillar of fire to lead. How he gave the 10 commandments to instruct you on how to live. Remember. And it's amazing, as they remember what happened over the last 40 years, they gain a renewed confidence in the providence of God, that he's going to guide them to victories in the future as well. Our time of communion is always going to be a time of remembering. Remember the sacrifice that Jesus made for us. So it's good for God's people to remember. Now again, this is Memorial Day. And the traditional Memorial Day was a focus on remembering. There are things that, again, we should never forget. One is the sacrifice others have made on our behalf. In 1866, it's just after the Civil War, there was a group of Southerners that did something quite extraordinary. They marched down the streets of what was left of their town, and they go all the way to the cemetery. And when they're there, they decorated the graves of the soldiers, all soldiers, Union as well as the Confederate. And the mothers and daughters and the widows had buried their dead. And now they were burying their hatred. The time for healing had come. That was the very first Memorial Day. So today, I'm praying that you'll take some time to remember. Because again, when we have short memories, we're going to lose something. We're going to lose something as a country, as a society, and yes, even as God's people. So take time to remember today.